Now, it's not that deep, but I have to ask. If you're going to get rat-assed, pissed, on your holidays, where is the designated driver? The one who stays sober while you party, and then he can drive you home without no controversy, so to speak. We might see you coming out the bar a little drunk, because obviously the paparazzi were on the spot. But you know, it's one of them situations that could have escalated into something. But thankfully for him, it didn't. Now, it's no big moral issue. To me, he just looked like a plonker. The way he stumbled out of the bar or wherever establishment he was in, and the lame kick at the taxi, he just looked like an absolute plonker. I was laughing my ass off. But I do have a
question.
If you have mental issues, like he's reportedly spoke about, is drinking alcohol conducive to treating the condition? Especially the amount of liquor he must have been drinking to be that drunk. And it's not the issue that he has mental issues, right? Because we all have a little something going on, right? Including moi. But he has put himself forward as an advocate for mental health. He has did this. But yet, there he is, getting drunk on holiday in France with his old man, stumbling around like a nutter. They're trying to open the taxi door. He refuses the fare because they look like nut jobs, and I would have done the same thing. He's flanked here by what they say is a notorious Scottish gangster. This notorious Scottish gangster, Kelby, has links to a certain crime boss, DK. I'm not talking about Don King, Daniel Kinahan. Right? I believe he has some issues, some mental health issues, but the whole thing that he's put himself forward as an advocate for that, I can't really take it serious. But that's just my opinion. The WBC have announced that they have cancelled the Eliminator they ordered for Ryan Garcia to take on Isaac Cruz because both fighters confirmed they had prior scheduled fights. Doesn't make sense to me. What fights would they have that's more important than taking an Eliminator to get a title shot? None of them protesting that, yo, no, I want the smoke. None of them. I don't know. I think Ryan was more interesting when he was on the sidelines and not boxing, making his lame tweets. For Isaac Cruz, listen, I'm not getting in no discussion about who's ducking the fight online. Sean Gibbons, Oscar, this, that, you know, like, no. You know, Ryan's online trying to blame the other party, but I'm not listening, Ryan. I'm not listening. If you don't want to fight, don't fight. See, if you're a Mexican fighter and you want me to call you Jaime, Jaime to me, I mean, he's got that Mexican warrior ring to it, you know, like Jaime Garza and them guys there. But I can't call Munguia that. I call him Jamie. You know what I mean? To me, it spells Jamie. Jamie Munguia is set to face British contender. The Ring magazine had the nerve to call Jim Kelly a contender. Now, the last guy he fought was 28-0, a Kazakhstan fighter, so that's a good result. But his two previous opponents had abysmal losing records. Abysmal. And he's fought about how many times? Twice since 2018 or something like that. And everybody's been critiquing Jaime Munguia's opposition. I'll call you Jaime. And they've been critiquing correctly so, because it's not where it needs to be. He's ducking all types of smoke, eliminators and title shots. He's way past the prospect phase. He held a sanctioning belt at 154. He's 39-0. Is this the plan over Golden Boy? Like, feed Jaime and sell them a whole lot of stiffs, get them past 50-0 and say, yeah, look, Floyd, come on, Oscar, make some proper fights. Gabe Rosado, that was actually a good opponent for him. That was a good opponent. Despite Gabe's record, it was a good opponent. Gabe was coming off that win against the overhyped Becker, I believe his name was, or Beck. That was a good win. And the opposition at 160, it hasn't been the worst, in all truth. It hasn't been the worst, but it's time to step up now. Surely. What happened to the Jacobs fight? Jim Kelly. Not unless you're talking about the brother who was in Enter the Dragon. I'm not hearing it. That's only Jim Kelly I'm thinking about.
opportunity. Where are the opportunities for these kids today in society? Of course, but even in the community, where you walk, if you go into a local amateur boxing club and you look at these kids and see what would they be doing without these coaches, without learning about discipline, without physically exercising, without being able to express
themselves. Then Peter might argue there should be funding for those other opportunities rather than promoting boxing.
I go the other way. I believe there should be funding for amateur boxing clubs. These clubs are run by volunteers that put themselves in the community, and politicians and local MPs have no idea. They never walk through the doors. Again, I'm talking about, I'm a father. Wait. I'm a father.
Here we go.
I'm a father. I have two daughters. Peter, do you think I would send my two daughters through an amateur boxing club if I didn't believe in the role that it could play to show I'm finished? And then from there we go and say, this is what boxing can you do to the community.
How many sons and daughters of neurosurgeons are participating in boxing? Why? Because they know how easy it is for people to sustain an injury.
You don't even know what happens.
You're interrupting me yet again. You're interrupting.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's your view. You're entitled to your opinion. I don't interrupt you, but you constantly interrupt.
When did you last go to an amateur boxing club?
I tell you what, come down to a Headway centre.
I will.
You come
to an amateur boxing club.
And I will show you people who have survived a brain injury.
I've seen it firsthand. I've been at those shows. I've been in the hospitals.
What shows?
I've seen it. I'm
talking about people with the lifelong effects, the disabilities that they will carry from boxing.
Of course.
So that proves the point, doesn't it? It's a very dangerous sport.
I agree, it's a dangerous sport, but you have to.
And you're encouraging people to take part in that when they could be going to play football. They could take up athletics.
They're not, are they?
There are so many other sports.
They're not.
They are doing it. Of course they are.
They're not.
Where do you think Raheem Sterling?
Really up against time.
I mean, Peter McCabe, I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced, his argument is terrible. There's women who go to boxercise classes and they have no intentions of trying to be Katie Taylor. There's loads of people who just go to a boxing gym because boxing training is one of the most effective things you can do to assist you in weight loss. I would rather my son and daughter to go to a boxing gym than be sitting in front of a computer getting obese by the time they're 10 and 11 years of age. Don Charles has a gym in Edgware, a boxing gym, but it's more like a fitness centre. The amount of clients he has there who go there to get fit because they trust Don to do a good job. You know how much people Don has to hire as personal trainers? Boxing is one of the most popular sports to get fit. That's what it's become. And it's good for your mind and your health. Go to the boxing gym. You don't have to put on the gloves. They don't pressure you to put on the gloves. A lot of the gyms, they do body sparring. They're very conscious of what can happen by taking excessive amounts or fatal blows to the head. What makes it hard for boxing to mount a defense for its existence is the intention is to incapacitate your opponent with your punches ASAP. Yes, there's a science to it as well. The ultimate goal of boxing as a concept is to knock someone out. That's the ultimate achievement. So I could say compare it to driving and say, well, as long as you don't drive excessively fast or dangerous, then it's relatively safe. But the intention of driving is not to crash the car, hurt yourself and others really badly. But boxing's been with us for how long? It's not going anywhere. If we're going to utilize boxing, we need to utilize it constructively. Not you just critiquing it, saying that it's dangerous, and dangerous. That's the wrong way to go.
When they could be going to play football, they could...
The first sport you said as an alternative is football. But now they're linking heading the ball to dementia. And Premier League clubs have apparently taken steps to limit the number of headers per week in training. Now the intention in football is not to render your opponent unconscious. Fair enough, but is society getting too nanny state on us right now? Can't hit a ball, can't box.
And the World Medical Association has called for boxing to be banned after the death of Mike Towell, who suffered severe brain injuries during a fight in Glasgow. Well, staying with that story, we can now speak to Peter McCabe, the Chief Executive of Headway, a leading brain injury charity. Peter, thanks so much for joining us this evening. First of all, your reaction to the death of Mike Towell.
Well, like everyone, we're incredibly saddened by this death. But we find ourselves asking the question, why has this happened? And for years, Headway has been saying, along with the British Medical Association, that boxing is an extremely dangerous sport. It's inherently dangerous. And why should we be surprised if somebody having sustained blows to the head suffers neurological damage, which results in their death. And I think the time has come to ban boxing. And how many more young people have to lose their lives or end up disabled for life before we do something about it? We're living in the 21st century, and yet this barbaric sport still continues, and it's wrong.
Further into this interview, he says that, do you notice the kids of neurosurgeons don't box? Because they're explaining and breaking down how dangerous boxing is to them, so they don't do so. But is it much a case that the neurosurgeon earning 80 to 100 grand a year can provide his kids, for want of a better word of phrasing it, better opportunities than the kids in more impoverished areas? They end up in boxing rings, they end up doing stuff that can put them in jail at a higher rate than the lawyer or neurosurgeon's kids do. Isn't it a case of that? You know, like in the rebellious stage of the neurosurgeon or lawyer's kids, they might experiment with drugs. And the neurosurgeon told them how dangerous that was, but they still did it. A lot of middle-class kids who experiment with drugs, they might not experiment with boxing or drug dealing. So is it really just a case of we listen to daddy? I'm not sure about that.
Chris Eubank, I suppose another death in a sport where the purpose of the sport, to those who are uninitiated, is literally to knock 7 bells out of each other.
Well, hold on. So, you know, the objective is to score points, and you score points by striking your opponent.
Yes.
Those strikes sometimes hurt, and sometimes, look, I mean, here is the conundrum for boxers. To incapacitate a man for 10 seconds and not a lifetime. It is a beautiful sport.
Now, I have no problem with Leonard ELLERBE critiquing Eddie Hearn. The biggest shit in boxing, piece of shit. Floyd and Canelo are from two different cultures. They share the ring, and we all know the result. I respect Canelo. He's a boss and a terrific fighter. Floyd paved the way for Canelo. This was in response to Eddie when he said the other week that Floyd is jealous of Canelo and says Floyd doesn't like anyone to get close to his kind of legacy. Now, Leonard's getting mad about that when I've heard African-American fighters and African-American boxing fans continually say Floyd doesn't like it when other people shine, which is mirroring, paraphrasing what Eddie is saying. You know, then Leonard's saying he's signed with a promoter who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's fucked off over $1 billion and still hasn't built a star in the United States. Well, I don't know what Leonard means by star. What do you mean by star? Because the regular observer of boxing like myself, I'm looking at the names you put on your resume. When you say star, do you mean Tank Davis? Because I am underwhelmed by Tank's resume. I would much prefer Devin Haney's resume under Eddie than Tank's resume under Leonard. Now, he's critiquing Eddie's handling of Devin. He said he applauds Bill, Haney's dad and coach. He applauds Devin. But Devin, to me, has a good resume at 135. I don't care what nobody says. He fought the best that Eddie could get him and was there. Whether that was Gamboa, Linares, and Jojo Diaz. Devin's done his thing. Tank hasn't done that, as far as I'm concerned anyway. What, Leo Santa Cruz and Isaac Cruz and them guys there? You're critiquing Eddie's handling of Devin, but it was Eddie who got the ball rolling to say, yo, we want to fight Kambosos and become undisputed. Where is the receipts, Leonard, that you've tried to do something to make Tank become undisputed? Where's the receipts? You tried to fight Lomachenko when he had all the scraps, or Teofimo Lopez. Instead, he told us that Bob doesn't want to make Teofimo Lopez because he knows he'll get knocked out by Tank. Bob's a smart man, and then he's saying all that, Bob don't want to make it, but he's trying to give Bob credit for that. He's trying to say Bob's clever and smart because he relates to that. Leonard is out of touch with the old school boxing mentality. And when I say old school, that could be a young person who has got the old school mentality. It's got nothing to do with age. It's just the mentality. Leonard is totally out of touch with it. You see, Leonard thinks that we're impressed that you're getting Tank money and he's not fighting anyone good and you're skimming off the top and you're clever, slick guys. We're not working hard, we're working smart, and all these cliched catchphrases. He thinks we think like he does. When the truth is, recently, boxing fans and media were voicing their displeasure of Tank Davis pay-per-view opponents. They are voicing their displeasure. That's not a star. A star doesn't have people voicing displeasure at the level of opposition that you're taking in world title fights. A star doesn't move up to 140 where there's an undisputed champion and fight for a minor belt and not see that undisputed champion. That's not star potential or form or anything as far as I'm concerned. Now, if I was a fanboy saying, yo, look how much Instagram and Twitter followers Tank has, and look at the chaps chain he's got around his neck, and then yeah, it would be impressive. But to me, that's secondary to the ring resume. That's all TMZ shit. Tank Davis's resume is junk, and you have been partially the main guy promoting and maneuvering him into that junk resume. And if Rowley beats him, you better hide your head, because you're going to get torn apart by the wolves. This is what I'm saying about boxing, with them cast iron resumes and the glass chin resumes. Tank's resume is the type of resume that while it's unbeaten, people will cheerlead and fanboy for him, because that's what people are like. They're very reactionary. You're dealing with a very reactionary crowd, right? But when that resume is exposed to have a glass chin by 1L, let's say Rowley gets the W, people are going to look at that resume and all of a sudden they're going to like, well, Tank ain't done shit in his career, and then he got knocked out by Rowley. We don't rip Rowley. This is Leonard's fault. This is Floyd's fault. If Devin loses to Kambosos, yeah, people are going to say, oh, well, maybe he isn't all that. But we're going to say he went for undisputed. He went down trying to achieve something. Can you say the same about Tank? If Tank loses in his next fight, who gets more credit if they lose in their next fight? Devin or Tank? Devin is traveling to Australia. Apparently his dad, because of past misdemeanors, won't be able to travel. And Yoel Judah, Zab Judah's old man, he'll be going in his place. And I don't like a lot of the energy from America. His dad can't go. He's got to travel to Australia. He's only young. They might rob him on the scorecards. They might do this. They might do that. It's almost like there's this insulated bubble that these fighters over there and fight fans stay in, when fighters from other countries are having to travel for their opportunities all the time, whether it's in America, Britain, wherever they have to go. But Devin shouldn't fight Kambosos because his dad can't be there. Yeah, it's tough because Ben Davison was supposed to be in the corner as well, and he can't be there. It is tough for Devin. It is tough, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to cancel the fight? And then when you're going to get to fight for undisputed? If he loses, he loses. If he wins, great. And I'm rooting for him to win. I'm rooting for Devin to win. The W. W or nothing, Dev. Simple. Eddie fired back at ELLERBE. I'm 100 times bigger than you. What are you? Nothing. He also threatened to go after Gervonta Davis when his contract is up. Hearn said he would definitely overpay to sign Gervonta Davis just for the banter with Leonard ELLERBE. And he's serious as well. He's serious. You see, he's not going to overpay for Fraser Clark and Ben Whittaker, but he will overpay for Gervonta Davis. Tank is older than Devin. He's defending his regular WBA strap. Devin is going for all the marbles, all official straps in the same weight class. And you're saying you're unhappy with Hearn's handling of Devin? It's an absolute joke. It's the biggest joke I've heard. I can ignore all what he's got to say about Eddie, but as for the handling of Devin, I mean, Eddie's not even involved in the promotion for one, right? Devin's had to sacrifice a lot in terms of his promotional situation. And Eddie's saying it's going to be a one-off. How is it going to be a one-off? Hasn't he signed a deal with Lou DiBella and Bob Arum contractually to at least have options on at least a rematch if he beats Kambosos? And I don't know the conditions of the agreement, but they might have options on his next few fights, even if he doesn't win. But Eddie would know more than me. Eddie has no stars in America, but he's built stars outside America. He's the only global promoter to speak of in the game. I'm watching the Spanish card now. What is Leonard doing for the world of boxing? What's he doing? What's happened to that Richardson Hitchens kid? Tell you what, he's not doing as well as Conor Ben. Now, Craig Richards would argue that Joshua is the unbeaten guy. Joshua Buatsi is the unbeaten guy. But he's had the harder fights. Now, he may have had the harder fights. I think Dimitri Bivol fight tips the balance in his favour on that argument. Joshua Buatsi hasn't accelerated to the world title as quick as he could have, you could argue. He's been a pro for over 5 years now. But let's keep it real with Craig. He may have had to take fights where he was the underdog plenty of times, take fights at short notice, but that was out of necessity because he didn't have a big promoter backing him. It was out of necessity. So he came in short notice to tackle Frank Buglioni for the light heavyweight title and lost the UD. That was in 2017. He's been a pro a couple more years than Joshua Buatsi. He's 32. Joshua is 29. Now, this is just how I see boxing, yeah? If he had beat Frank Buglioni in 2017, he would have been on his way to a Lonsdale belt, Europeans, and world honours. But he lost. He lost the UD. Yeah, he came in at short notice and gave a good account of himself. Not going to take that away from him, but he lost. When you lose, like he did, you have to reset. He came back on another Eddie Hearn card. The Buglioni challenge was on the Eddie Hearn card, and he was on the undercard of Dillian versus Lucas Brown, and he won. And for the most part, he's worked with Eddie Hearn since the good showing against Buglioni. Buglioni lost on that same Dillian White Lucas Brown card. He got knocked out by Callum Johnson, and that more or less ended his career. He did take his opportunity though when he took on the 12-1 Jake Bull, and he knocked Bull off, stopped him, and Bull was favoured to beat him. Then there's fights like the Andre Sterling fight where he won clearly against the 10-0 Sterling, a good fighter actually, strong lad, but he didn't look anything special really. Then the inexplicable draw with Chad Sugden, who was 11-1. Craig may explain it away that he's not motivated for certain fights. Therefore, you get the Chad Sugden results. After the draw, he takes his opportunity on a Channel 5 card. This is the first card. He hasn't been on an Eddie Hearn show for a little while. And he beats Shakan Pitters, who was 14-0 and a good fighter, and knocks him out in the 9th. It's an impressive knockout. That gets him a shot against Dimitri Bivol, who in recent weeks has beat Canelo. And people are saying, actually, Craig Richards has given Bivol his best test as a pro. Then he took on a Polish opponent named Macia. And this guy was finding the range with Craig early. He wasn't finding Craig that hard to hit, but Craig got him out of there. It was a very good finish. Very good finish. And then comes the Joshua Buatsi fight. Now, Buatsi has had the Kalic fight, which, you know, he was getting outboxed, wasn't he? But Kalic was an extremely good amateur, and he showed that type of pedigree, outboxing Buatsi. A very tall Croatian and well-schooled boxer was Kalic. 11-0 going in. But apart from that, you look at the performances like Leon Conroy for the British title, wiped him out in 3. Marco Antonio Periban on the same night Joshua lost his belts to Andy Ruiz, wiped him out in 4. Periban obviously passed his best, but nevertheless, Reynold Quinlan, who took Eubank Jr. 12, was blown out in 1 round by Buatsi. Tony Avalant, who took Anthony Yard 7 rounds before retiring, was blown out in 1 round. In 1 round by Joshua Buatsi. You know, trust me, Jordan Joseph, who was trained by Don Charles, you can ask around the trade, yo, Jordan knows how to handle himself. He's a pretty good fighter. Buatsi dusted him in 2. The right hands that he finished Daniel Dos Santos off with, who was 15-0. Now, look, Dos Santos was no world beater. But if we're going to just talk the eye test, it was a savage knockout. a savage knockout, which left his opponent disoriented and almost put him into a depression in the ring, crying, sobbing. Buatsi and Virgil Hunter had to console the guy. He was so broken. Then you got the Ricards Bolotniks knockout. Bolotniks was world ranked. He beat Hosier Burton in the final of that tournament. He was on a long winning streak. Bolotniks was a tough guy. And he caught Buatsi maybe a little too much for Virgil Hunter and the critics' observing's liking. He did get caught quite a lot. But the savagery of the finish is something he showed on occasion. Craig Richards showed it against Shakan Pitters, he did. But I don't think Buatsi loses to Chad Sugden. I don't think he has motivational problems to get up for a Chad Sugden. I don't think he does. How does Joshua Buatsi do against that same Frank Buglioni that Craig Richards fought at short notice? Let's put Joshua in there at short notice, let's say 3 or 4 years ago. How does he do? I think he beats him. Buatsi has weighed up to 178 in a couple of fights, 177. He's a full-fledged light heavy, make no mistake about that. He's 6'2". Craig is registered as 6'1", 73-inch reach. Buatsi has a 74.5-inch reach. The 1-inch height difference is hard to make out. It's hard to make out. Craig has floated around the weights from 168, 166, 168 to light heavy. But I guess that's because he's taking the fights wherever they open up. So if they say, can you come in at 168? No problem. Can you come in at 175? And he's done that, old school style. I think Joshua is naturally the bigger light heavy. I think he has a power edge. Is Craig Richards the more fluid boxer? This is going to be a big determining factor in this fight. The factors are going to be, in my opinion, is Buatsi's power and how fluid Craig Richards could be. I think trading with Buatsi would be a mistake, and because he traded with Bivol, he might think, oh, well, I trade with Bivol, I trade with Buatsi. Buatsi hits harder than Bivol. He hits harder than Bivol. Buatsi makes more defensive mistakes than Bivol. And this is what Craig has to exploit by not trading with Buatsi. At least not get forced into trading. If he trades, Craig should trade on his own terms and try and exploit Buatsi's suspect defense. Sometimes Craig is a little upright, his head's up in the air a little, and I have a feeling that Virgil Hunter would have seen that. Craig has to watch out. Against the Santos, between rounds, Virgil told Joshua Buatsi to feint to the body, then go up to the head, and it was a flat line. So Buatsi is learning new tricks. He's definitely learning new tricks. Whether he'll be able to do it against Craig, we'll see. Craig says he's had the harder fights, but that's only because Joshua won a bronze medal in the 2016 Olympics. That got him onto the high scale of the Sky platform quicker than it would have Craig Richards, who didn't have the Olympic credentials. Bivol aside, you could argue he had the harder fights. I would say his fights were hard because of the circumstances more than the opponents, like short notice fights. Fights where he was brought in to be the underdog. The Jake Bull fight. I don't think Jake Bull beats Buatsi. In fact, I'd put my money on Buatsi all day. I'm assuming Virgil Hunter made the commute from Paris last week to London. I did notice his absence at the weigh-in though, so I don't know if he's going to be there. They both looked ripped, shredded and all that good stuff. Buatsi was chugging on that water after he made weight though. He was chugging on that water. Craig took a couple of sips of his energy drink or whatever he had. I think Craig can make it awkward and will make it awkward for Buatsi while the fight is in progress. Craig seems to have a good chin, but Buatsi hits awfully hard. Never seen Craig on the floor, never seen him hurt that badly. Buatsi's only went the distance twice, and that was early in his career in 6 rounders. Joshua Buatsi is the pick for me. I think he works out the early obstacles and will grind down Craig Richards for a points win. The firepower will be the deciding factor. I don't think he'll knock Craig out though. I think on points.